Welcome to this episode of the Parkour Podcast, PKast. My name is Philipp, I'm from ParkourONE in Germany, and I had the opportunity to travel and talk to a lot of tracers in the parkour scene. My guest in this episode is Mr. Jesse Danger from the Movement Creative in New York. Jesse Danger believes everything is a game and that play is the highest form of mastery. He doesn't believe in time or injuries. He believes everyone gets better at what they do. He believes that building community is the easiest way to grow. In this podcast, we talked mainly about games and play in parkour, as well as competition in parkour, which really gave me another perspective on this topic. This podcast was recorded in Denmark during the international gathering in July 2017. Samson from ParkourONE Berlin is the co-host of this episode. Check out the description, there are further links and timestamps for the questions. Lean back and enjoy this episode of PKast.
Oh, parkour!
Okay. Yes. So, who are you?
I'm Jesse Danger.
Yeah, awesome name. Where are you from?
I'm from New York City. Live
Okay.
in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, yeah. You grew up there?
I grew up in New Jersey and Connecticut. It's like bordering.
Okay. Cool. Before we start, I always ask the same question, like where did we meet?
We met at the ParkourONE Research and Development Forum 2017.
So actually we just know for about 6 days.
Yeah.
And who are you?
I'm Samson from ParkourONE in Berlin, and I've met Jesse a little bit earlier because I had the pleasure to coach with him at American Rendezvous in Boston, and then coach a workshop in New York about like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. So actually you also know just like for how many weeks then? Like
We didn't even spend that much time together while we were in the States. I think we're just starting to get to know each other.
3 weeks.
Yeah.
okay. I'm pretty excited because you did one workshop on the research group, and that you spent a little bit of salt there, and I want to know more about what you're doing, because they basically have some topics I want to ask. I have some silly questions. And do you want to start with the silly questions?
No, I mean that's fine. Talking about the workshop. Well, I mean whatever you want to talk about.
Can you do a backflip?
I can do a backflip.
What's the most dangerous jump you did?
I jumped from a 7-story to a 6-story over an alley, maybe 4 meters.
Oh.
But I had a cable.
So you felt you were scared, eh? Anyways?
I was still scared, yeah. Actually the job was to botch the jump, so I had to do like a slam cat.
What?
I had to cat like that. Yeah.
Oh, well,
Okay.
1 story down?
Yeah.
Did the cable catch any of the force, or?
So I had something to take away the horizontal,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
the vertical I had to do.
Serious? 1 story?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of stupid.
Okay. And what kind of shoes do you wear?
I wear Onitsuka Serranos.
Okay. And who's your favorite tracer?
Any Traceur who's showing me something I haven't seen before.
I like this answer. And who's the best tracer out there? Mr. Danger?
Any Traceur who's showing me something I haven't seen before.
I knew that I can't do anything with you about this question. Okay, these were the stupid questions. How long do you train is also maybe a stupid question. How long do you train?
I guess I've been training since 2004, but I don't think I've trained any like singular way for more than a few years.
Okay. So you did different stuff, or what do you mean by that?
Always parkour, but just different focuses.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. What kind of focuses then? In which phase are you in right now?
Now I'm trying to develop my capacity to be a natural mover, and trying to pay attention to the tiny details in movement and the just natural familiarity that will allow me to learn things quickly and be able to shorten the gap between encountering a challenge and accomplishing a challenge.
Shorten it, yeah?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, interesting. And did you have any other phase before? Like you said, like there were some phases?
Yeah, I started like really maybe traditional. Just kind of watching the first videos. We didn't have a lot of guidance in the US, so it was like jumps, vaults, everything like this, like lots of impact, working on precisions and
somehow like every tracer starts like doing big drops but I think you had the faster internet connection, so you can download the videos faster than us.
Still, it's like one video a month or something. It's pretty slow. And then I broke my arm, and I got an Achilles injury, and then I got a wrist injury, and I got a wrist injury from like skateboarding, and I fell off something and took a bad jump late after training, and wasn't paying a whole lot of attention. So I'm kind of in this like crippled state, but I still want to move. And
you feel like you crippled?
At that point.
Okay.
At that point, I felt like I was totally crippled, couldn't have any impact.
When was it like?
This is like maybe 2008, 2009.
Okay.
And maybe a little bit earlier. Maybe, 2007, 2008. But started learning how to move without any kind of impact at all. And that led to, I guess, some work, a lot of work on flow.
So you had to...
And body complexity.
You had to find different ways,
Yeah.
to fill this gap, like you want to move, but you couldn't move the old way, so you have to find...
how can I move? How can I do an underbar without my arm? How can I do all these things?
And that's kind of like... You found challenge, by accident. Okay.
Literally accident.
One of my main questions is like, because I'm struggling with this question, like what is parkour? Can you give me an answer? Like what's parkour? I know the basic definition, but like what's parkour?
Parkour, to me, is finding challenges in your physical, mental, social environment, temporal environment, and seeing how embracing those challenges can help you become better in the ways you want to be. And that as you mature a little bit and you have some more control over your environment, you can start to put those challenges into your environment, so you start to grow in the way that you want to. But it's really seeing the environment's capacity to be a teacher. Yeah,
I think I understand this, but in which way do you want to grow? Like you say, like physically, mentally, socially, like what do you mean by growing then? Like, in which direction do you grow when you do parkour? I feel like I'm getting stronger, physically. I'm getting stronger, but for me it's the question like, what do I want to do with this strength? What do you want to do?
Become more finely attuned to who I am and how the world is, and see what kind of cool things can come of it.
Okay. Are there any cool things you stumbled across your way? What's popping up?
What's popping up?
Yeah.
I'm really interested in developing programming that is focused on embodying lessons. So not working on the movement as much as using the movement as a vehicle to allow people to feel a lesson. I feel to feel a lesson.
Okay.
So I feel that through my life, if I've like physically embodied a lesson, even as little as start together, finish together, once I've physically embodied it, it's something I can apply to everywhere in my life. But if it's just something that I hear, it's like, oh, I can try it, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work. But I think once I feel it, I know it's true, and then I can start to bring it into the world.
I think I understand what you mean, like because like I can understand my life better, and I can understand different passions better through my experience, what I experienced myself. For example, my roommate, he's passionate about cooking, and I know when I ask him a question about cooking, I see like how he's getting excited, and when he's preparing stuff, like I understand what he's doing because I felt it in when I do stuff. Do you mean this by embodiment? And
yeah, so that would be like the embodiment of passion, and I think that many people in parkour have that sense, so they can see when someone has it, how much it's there. And I think in a lot of ways, as a movement coach, a parkour coach, you're trying to put people in a position where they can feel their passion around movement.
Yeah.
Do you have a particular example, a recent one that sticks out to you, where you felt like you delivered a lesson and you could
from like a programming design perspective? We just finished anatomy through sequential art and movement. So it was a parkour class where the students were learning about the parts of their body and how to draw them, and they drew comic books with that knowledge, using parkour in the comics as well.
Nice.
So it's pretty cool.
I think I heard somebody talk about this before with Craig. That was a really exciting concept to me to use it.
Yeah, that was Johnny.
I never heard anybody like it was a similar idea. So that was I agree. That's a really beautiful example.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's also kind of like when we see our environment, like social environment, everything, like what's possible here. A school says they want a parkour program, a couple parents are interested, and we go in and we talk to them and we try to figure out what works for them. It's a STEM school, and we knew that Johnny was going to be coaching it. Johnny has a master's in fine art, and he's been a painter for a really long time. And he took like deep anatomical studyings, like taking bodies apart and drawing, and like he has like the best anatomical understanding of anybody I've met. And I think of like what would work at the school, what would work for Johnny, what would work for the kids, what would work for the people who want parkour. And we were able to create programming that, whether, I mean, it's for like 8 to 10 year olds, but whether they identify as like more of a scientist or more of an artist or more of a athlete, they're all going to be able to come to one space and work together on this project.
Okay, yeah. This is definitely more the movement, and that's always what parkour meant to me. Like there's a physical layer, but there's something above,
Yeah.
And what I wanted to ask further is like, you're a parkour coach. Like, can you just give a basic, rough outline, like how often do you coach? What do you do, like in New York City?
Well, right now I'm doing, I guess, more administration and program design than coaching. I'm looking to step into more opportunities, like coming to international gathering, coming to the research and development forum. Definitely want to see where else what we've learned there could be shared.
Like transferred and connecting stuff.
Yeah, and I also see that it's important for myself and for like other people in my community to go out and see what else people are doing and what else people have figured out.
I think your you really have a skill. You know, I just know you for 6 days, but like you said before, you have some. You're good in connecting different stuff with parkour. Like for me, obviously, it was this playing thing, because there's also this. I have the impression that you have a lot of structure, and you said like you studied something with games. Maybe you can explain this again to me because I forgot it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like, what's your basic concept? You know, like how do you connect, and what's in your head, man?
So the workshop that we did was on systems thinking through game design, and systems thinking is just it's a way to think about anything. It's knowing that this is a part of the whole system, and if I change this little bit, it's going to change something over here and here.
And interact,
and if we also abstract a little bit what it means to be a game, and we say that a game is any kind of motivational system. We're creating experiences for people that help them develop in the ways that they want to. Well, that turns like a traditional calisthenics class. Maybe it's just going to be push-ups and pull-ups. It's also a game. It's are you able to, you know, battle with your mind or battle with your body to get from point A, like where you start in the class, to point B at the end, and feel good about it and be able to come back regularly. That's a bigger game. So that's systems thinking. What we're looking to do is create programming that meets these learning targets. So how do we create a class that is going to teach you anatomy and drawing and movement, and make sure that people are you know, really getting enough out of each of those, actually possibly getting more, because they're able to embody those experiences. They know what a body looks like, so when they draw it, they know what that feels like, they can imagine it, they're starting to make all those connections themselves. And that's what I'd like to see out of our students as well.
Okay. That's pretty huge topic, you know, like, yeah. I like to play games, and I like to make, you know, like team buildings and stuff like this.
Yeah.
But for me it's really hard to come up with new stuff. How do you come up with new stuff?
So I would say that the tool that I showed you at the Research and Development Forum, that's like one lens that I look through to make sure that what I'm doing makes sense. So you have a goal. That's what you're trying to achieve. You have a challenge. What's stopping you from achieving it? If you look at like the team building that you created, let's stack all the tires up. The goal is to stack all the tires. The initial challenge is that it's, you know, difficult. We don't know how difficult it is. The later challenge became, you know, keeping people on board with it, and keeping us aligned with the possibility, and also finding ways to make it safe. The tools we had were like just our bodies and the tires. Yeah. And we were pretty strict about that. Yeah, we didn't want to use the boxes and stuff. So it was even though none of this was explained, several of us already agreed that like it's really got to be just the tires. And that's kind of cool. The space was, you know, just that area. Yeah. And the
tools, or what was it?
Yeah, the tools were the tires in our bodies. The rules were.
The rules, yeah.
I guess one rule was we're gonna stick this through till it's done. I know that's one I felt, and you know, as we get towards the end, it's like, you know, there's only so much wiggle room. I think you really held that line, and you said no, we really have to finish the initial goal. That would be an example of a game.
Do you think like you're pretty creative, or do you this creativeness is coming from this structure? So because the impression I have, you're a structured man, you know. Does it all come from a structure, like the 5 things you just mentioned, or are you a creative guy?
I think that those structures, those like systems ideas, are the ones that help you be like very quickly creative. That if you have them, then they become like super great tools. Like we were playing like the game of tag on the beams, and we're coming up with new rules. And of course, like anybody can come up with a rule, but for me, it's just like a little clicker. Like, are we gonna change the goal, the space, the challenge, the like whatever?
Were you the one who introduced the idea to, instead of using just the beams to play tag, to have the starting and the finishing point?
I mean, I think we created a space where lots of different people could add different ideas, and we were all kind of playtesting the whole time.
Because I feel like there was an interesting switching point where we, instead of changing the rules on how to tag someone, we changed the goal and also the space a little bit, because before we were restricted to the beams. So and I didn't realize at the time, because we didn't do your workshop before, but now looking back, I realized, okay, before we were only using this one bit of this system to change the game, and the moment we introduced this, the whole game dynamic changed, because we start changing other parts of the system.
Yeah, so then like in that instance, and I remember like that specific moment, because it was kind of a moment when I threw the book like away, because there was a rule, and then we kind of suggested another rule, and then there's like 2 new rules happening, and for me this like breaks just basic scientific, like there's 2 variables, so there's no way to really measure which worked, which didn't work, but it sounded interesting enough, and I also think that like if you can get that level of interesting, or that level of unreasonable, like stacking the tires, it's actually very motivational, and it becomes like that much more engaging and pulls people deeper into it, so it's a good time to like throw out the rule book. Yeah, in that instance, I think we had all been talking for a really long time. We went out, we were just jumping a little bit. Somebody introduced just a mechanic of you can't step on a beam the same time someone else is. And then that became a tag game, and then that became a different game, and a different game, and a different game. And by the end of it, we probably were jumping around for maybe an hour and a half or something. It's like a pretty long time moving around on the beams. And I don't think if we were just jumping, just because of our energy levels that day, that time, that we would have trained for an hour and a half. So I think that was a really good way to like get to know each other more, to challenge one another, and to find some capacities around jumping, like quick awareness and strategy and tactics, and that we might not be focused on when we're training alone.
I think we definitely wouldn't have stayed that focused on this that long, even if we were had kept keeping up training. Some of us would drop out and do something else that they maybe prefer or something. So we was for a really long time. The same people kept focused on the same kind of skill work in the end, even if that's not how we were approaching it at the time.
And that's kind of what I'd want from my classes, and one of the reasons like I introduced that game system, because I would want a student of any age to say like, oh, this game's not quite, like, what if we tried this? What if we tried this? Like, to me, a lot of parkour in my early days was, hey, what about this? Hey, what about this? What if we try this? Let's try this. And it was this like curiosity, inquisitiveness, and like it's really easy to look at the like 1 million techniques that you have to learn before you get to be creative, but it's also fun to just see what you can do right now, right here with this.
I remember, you know, like this curiosity, like the Yamakase, I think it was Stefan in his documentary said like, they just try to, if they can lift up this car, or do they can hang here, or can they do so, they find challenges, you know, like all the way. This playfulness, I did some, you know, one of my mentors in my education, he said like, if he plays with children, that's when he sees their character, you know, because it's unfiltered, you know, and I think like when you played this game on the beams, you know, you were just so much into this task, you forgot about yourself or your mask or whatever you try to, you know, carry. You just throw yourself in, and you just drawn into it, and you're in it. I think this is why I like playing in games in general. So I basically I don't have a question. But
well, there's like two ideas there that I really like. Like, I think of play as the highest level of mastery, because we're being task oriented. We're actually trying to achieve a thing. So a little bit, I mean, it can be different than normal training, because you're trying to achieve, and then everything has to fall into place, and you only have so much focus to allocate to the specifics movement. So you can see the character, you can also see the character in people's movement. So maybe if you're rehearsing a precision or a precision line, I'm gonna watch it and be like, wow, that's like perfect technique. But then we start playing a game where you have to do precisions across as part of the game. You're trying to be quick, and you're kind of getting a little bit sloppy. And maybe I'm gonna notice something, or you're gonna notice something about your movement that you wouldn't have noticed otherwise. I think that's kind of cool.
You know what I think, Samson? I think Jesse would be a really cool experience workshop in Germany.
I can imagine this.
I really can imagine this. You know, there's a series.
Yeah.
You know the series?
Yeah, I've heard of the series, and I talked to Ben a little bit about it.
Yeah.
Because we were trying to do something similar with Samson in New York, and we'd like to be able to continue to do that.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
I would like to invite you. Like, make it possible somehow.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, it would be really cool. I think really, really interesting. But you had a question in mind?
He basically touched on it already. I just remembered you talking earlier to me how you can use games as an assessment tool. So I think that's basically what you were describing.
Yeah.
But that makes me think of something else. Is there, from your perspective, is there a difference between games and play?
I think games, and especially like inviting it as games, or creating those experiences, lets people step into a space where they're a little bit more comfortable being who they are, and play is that being. So being who you are would be play.
Okay.
To me.
When I remember right, is one of the definitions of playing, it's useless. You know, like it has no like goal in itself. Like it's for its own sake. I think you say sake. Is it true? You know, of course you
if you say useless, you don't mean that it doesn't. That you can't gain anything from it, but you mean that play doesn't serve doesn't have to serve a purpose. It doesn't have to have a product at the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's one of the really interesting things here, because I see that people develop a very negative relationship with play.
Yeah.
And that, you know, sometimes people are taught from a young age that they should behave a certain way, and that you know, play is kind of this, like, maybe it's a reward, or maybe it's like, you know, it becomes further and further away from who someone is, but it's also now something that I think is really lacking.
Yeah.
That it's just not out there, it's not being used, and it's
kind of abstract, maybe.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal tool for skill acquisition, for the things that I'm looking at, for being a natural mover.
Because, you know, I travel a lot by public transport in my city, and, you know, I often see like grown-up people like touching their mobile phone, and then I see, oh, they play blobby volley, you know, like, oh, you're a businessman, you play blobby volley, so that's pretty cool in some way, you know. So people have the desire to play, you know.
Yeah.
But this physical, you know, thing, you know, touching is physical, you know, but this.
I mean, at this point, I guess it's also, there's no debate anymore that play is very central piece of development for children, and
definitely.
I think if you are capable of thinking a little bit ahead, there's very strongly suggests that it might be a very good tool to develop in general, not just for children. So.
Yeah. I think what happens is that people do just hide their play, basically. Their play is something that they can do with people that they really trust, really care about, really know, and they're afraid of playing physically. A lot of physical play has become very competitive, and I see like a value and a place for that as well. I just want to make sure that that value in place doesn't get in the way of other people's enjoyment of just the exploration and what's possible.
So you said it like some games or plays is getting more competitive. So I want to open my second question, or the second big topic, like parkour and competition. Like we started to talk about this, and I think I can get some new perspectives, because basically until now I was pretty like no, fuck no. But how do you relate to competitions?
I would say for any athlete or any person, like it's a worthwhile lens to see how you interact in a competitive setting, and whether or not you're, acting or being the way that you'd like to see yourself, and then seeing whether there's any actionable steps you can take to move your action or being towards that direction. That would be one thing. Just paying attention to how you are, because we can find ourselves in competitive settings, and
we can't. You say
we can.
Yeah.
We're not always like. Yeah. It's not always a choice.
Yeah.
So sometimes we're there. So how are we when we're there?
Because you said like we're living in a competitive environment, society. A lot of things is competitive.
Right. We can become competitive in how not competitive we are too, and that's like kind of ridiculous. I think within the context of parkour, there's such strong benefits to keeping it a community that teaches one another and learns from one another, and doesn't place any crazy value on one person over another person. Especially there's one, but I also see that there's like these competitions, and they speak very strongly to some people, and some people really enjoy them, and maybe they enjoy the content a lot, maybe they enjoy the feelings that they get at it, maybe they enjoy the motivation that comes from thinking that they'll be in a competition or going and competing with their friends, and that's something that we also have to remember. Oftentimes in parkour competitions, it's a group of friends coming together, even if they're coming from far apart, and the winner or the loser, it's not like high stakes. I think that money can get involved, and that can change motivations and
all these external factors. I
worry about people being influenced to the point of physical detriment and deciding that they would rather win than take care of their body. But I also honor that that's their decision to make as human beings. But it's also a decision that's being made for the larger community, by organizations, by the people making those decisions. So I think compelling that responsibility to anybody who's chosen to make that decision, and also really investigating the reasons why they think it's important and what they're trying to accomplish from it, which I think gets back to systems thinking. If we start paying attention to the system of competition, that motivational system, we see it as a game in and of itself, and we start to ask like, what are the learning targets of that game? And a lot of times people just make a game, they don't have the learning targets, but we have to be clear that anytime we've made a game, anytime we've made a system, that there are some like learning targets or objectives, and they're not always the things that we want. And there's also things that can happen that maybe you didn't expect. So if people see that parkour is competitive, maybe they get turned off by it. Maybe that's just maybe that's something that happens from competitions. We don't know. We're not measuring. We have no idea. But we are measuring some things. Tangibly, we measure athletes' speed, and we measure athletes' power, and this puts a huge pressure on the entire community to perform speed and power. We also intangibly measure creativity or flow, acrobatics, We don't have any kind of way of saying who's better than who.
Yeah.
But we try to.
Yeah.
And I think that the intangibility of that bothers me a little bit.
What bothers you?
The intangibility.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not in any way measured. You can't say that one person's better than another because they did this trick here versus that trick there, and
yeah, because I think it was like you said it to me, like it's impossible to because we are so individual and so different, you know, like you ate your breakfast in the morning and I ate my breakfast, you know, and so we're different.
Right.
So to compete, you know, it's like unreasonable in a way, you know, like, or it's never exact, you know, like.
Yeah. Right. So like Samson right now could say, okay, the next competition is the first person wearing a purple shirt wins.
Yeah.
Like, great job, Samson. It's gonna be him, and actually we can do this with any parkour competition.
Yeah, that's what you explained, that you can make a competition that's perfectly fit to you.
And it's actually incredibly difficult not to make that competition, not to make the competition that favors you and your athletes, your organization, your environment, the things that you focus on, the things that you care about, because that's actually what you'd want to see measured in a competition, right?
Is it also just a little side note or side step? Like, I observe myself that I train mostly the things I'm good at. Because I feel enjoyment and fulfillment because I know I'm good at it. Is it the same with you? Do you also like, I don't know what you're good at, you know, like good at, what you like to do, where people say, oh, I put my favor on this, but yeah.
But you trained with me for 2 days.
Yeah. I don't know what you're good at.
I don't know either.
Philipp, what are you good at?
I like precisions and swings.
Yeah.
And so I when I get to a spot, I train this mostly. But I really roll less, I do less saut de chat and blah blah. I could go on, like 1 foot take off, passe muraille. There are so many things I suck at in parkour. And in some way I could train this more to become a more even blah blah blah. But you know, it just makes more fun to be good at something, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same with you, yeah? Because we are coming from this competition thing, like, so I would mostly make a precision swing competition, you know?
I don't know, I mean, I think in a lot of ways parkour to me is like take something you're bad at and keep doing it until you're good at it.
Yeah.
And
does it make fun to you?
Yeah, it's totally fun. But the other thing to think about is the fact that like good and bad are value judgments created by us. The things that we go out and do in parkour are things that we create. So when an athlete is like screaming at a wall or screaming at themselves, like they put themselves in front of that wall, and that's kind of like they could have chosen any challenge in the entire world, and they chose this one that makes them angry. Or, you know? So that becomes like really interesting to me. But yeah, like I take something that I perceive myself as not quite understanding, and I try to break it down, and sometimes I succeed and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I work on a more abstract level. Like a lot of the stuff I did today in the like free play was me like kind of
playing with the cup and
then I did some like kind of contact improv stuff with the bars, trying to find like new positions. And then my idea is that if I was in like a speed course, or if I had to do something like new for the first time, I could do it no problem. And
that's really also what I like to train.
Yeah. So I like another thing I like to play around with is just testing how quickly I can go between like different states of tension, whether I can be like kind of noodle, like very soft, to springy, to like very rooted. And like an example of that for me today would be rolling on the wall. I'm not there where I can do that springy, but I can do that slow, and then I can spring right into a jump, and then I can land and be pretty rooted.
Okay.
That was like a fun pattern for me.
Okay.
In that way.
Right. That's for me. It's so important to talk about this because you know, like, I can't look in your head. It's really interesting that you put your thoughts, or you find your fun in this. It's cool. I really like this.
Thank you.
I was wondering earlier when we were talking about competitions, I felt like most of the stakes we were talking about were individual stakes, like how individual persons or maybe like a group might be affected that participates or not participates in it. But I feel like how do you feel like the stakes for the bigger picture, for the community, or even like going outside of the people who are partake in the community, like but those who are looking onto us and those who are interacting with traceurs, free runners, whatever, and like what's to gain and what's to lose depending on how this plays out.
Yeah, I think what I'd like to see is that we can be a little bit more clear with the fact that parkour is not inherently competitive, but we can choose to be competitive in it, the same way we can choose to be competitive in anything. We can start to measure these capacities, and we're also present to the fact that whatever we're measuring, all the athletes who come to the competition are now subscribing to that measurement, and they have a huge reach, and people are paying attention to the competition. So now those become very important attributes. We have the capacity to measure really interesting things now, and I think I would like to see some diversity in the things that are measured at competition. There's some cool bouldering style competitions. One of my favorite, I've never watched it, I just heard about the concept and it's interesting to me, is the athletes are all in a room, so on site, so they come out, they have 5 minutes to solve a problem. They don't get to see how any other athlete solved it, and they go back, and then every athlete goes out and solves the same problem. And it seems like a pretty interesting way of testing people. Still, it falls to a lot of the same problems that the other style has, but it's just a different capacity.
So you told me earlier that actually a lot of the athletes competing who might be like very, very skilled otherwise, completing very challenging routes within this framework where they have very little time to complete them, the difficulty is that they can manage to complete all routes on is a lot lower, so it measures a completely different capacity from visual climbing competitions, which is like to adapt very quickly and understand and master challenge very quickly.
So you have athletes that can do like V13 climbs, and now they're up against one V6 climb, but they only have 5 minutes. And it's like, imagine taking any precision master in parkour, and they can do any precision jump, or they can do 15-foot running precisions, whatever, like crazy tech, awesome. Can they do every 7-foot precision in the world? Probably not. There's probably 7-foot precisions that are gonna stump them, that are gonna be like a little bit technical, a little bit funky, like the target's just gonna get in their head, or the height, or something about it. And now you see people engaging with it, and I think watching that engagement is really interesting to me. That's like one of the things I pay attention to myself, and in the people I work with, to see what ways they're encountering the things that they're up against. Because ultimately we do all choose that wall, and sometimes it makes us angry, sometimes it brings us calm, sometimes we're afraid. There's all sorts of different things that can happen, but we chose it. So what does that say about us, and is that something we're bringing to everything in our life?
So did you ever participate in a parkour competition? I think like,
I've done just a little bit of like challenge night stuff. Like we've made challenge nights. So for challenge night we'll go around the space and put like 30 problems out, and make sure that each problem is scalable. and then see how people handle it. It becomes a very social thing. And we got that idea from bouldering competitions.
Yeah. Yeah, as we were talking about this, like you have a score, more or less a scorecard, and you can go around. And you also mentioned one interesting thing, like you want to teach your students the capacity to build up challenges.
Yeah. So we have.
That's really interesting for me. Like you know, like that they design challenges.
Yeah. So we have people from the community coming in and designing the challenges for the challenge night, and you know their job is to think of things that they haven't seen before, think of things that would be difficult and interesting, and get people's attention and work people in every capacity. So you know, is this working legs powerfully, technically, arms, swinging, pushing, twisting, rolling, like any way you could challenge someone to move.
Yeah. So I really have absolutely no problem with this, you know. I think it's the coolest thing, you know, like, because it's awesome, you know. We like challenges, you know. Yeah. Like for me, the biking thing is like to, you know, to go with the scorecard, you know, and then to check 16 challenges and you did 15, blah blah. I don't like this comparison. This is what I'm struggling with.
Yeah.
And you know, like, so many young tracers, you know, they grow up with out of motion, and for them it's normal to, you know, this, or maybe apex, and for them it's normal, you know, and that's what I'm worried about.
Maybe it's not necessary. I would say, like, we've done challenge nights where we had 70 people and only 10 people turned in scorecards at the end. Now most people are just going around kind of doing whatever they want. And I don't know whether it's setting a bad example for the other 10 people, but it seems like they're happy to do it and they're a part of the community, and it's a way for them to push themselves, because they're actually also trying this this like meta challenge of how many of these challenges can I accomplish, and they're just trying to measure that. So they have,
and to battle themselves, you know, like you want to, I want to And it's and I'm attracted to the idea, to be honest. I'm just attracted. I don't know how you feel about it, but I think it's like super fun.
Philipp, have you ever joined any of the bouldering competitions in Cologne?
No. Okay, but I you know, I always am excited because there are awesome new routes, you know. There are awesome challenges, you know.
They always set up new routes, and then the routes stay around until the next one. And it's kind of like, if they're gonna put all that time into changing the routes, maybe they can have like a fun like day for everyone to just try to do everything. And I think it's interesting. The other thing is, and we can touch back on like the game we played on the beams. We're changing the rules so much that even when we step in and we make it more competitive or less competitive, like we're not measuring something that that's really rooted in our character or rooted in anything like that. Like if you're coming to one of our challenge nights, then these are 30 new problems, and like our goal is to stress your diversity and push against that. So like you get to measure that, but the next one, it's not going to be the same challenges. It's going to be totally different.
And
so
that's really has some positive in it, because like I told you before, like I like precisions and swings. So when I'm going outside and I do them, but you know, on your challenge, I get challenged on a really diverse level. You know, I have to do crazy stuff I never did before, and I really hate, maybe, you know, like, and that's I'm attracted also to that, because I want to be
and you get to be there in kind of a playful social environment.
This is good. I just like the idea.
But I don't think it's perfect. I think that I agree, and I think I've seen bad things come of it, and I've seen good things come of it. So
interesting. Yeah, I'm really thankful for your talk until now. Yeah, definitely. If you don't have a question, or if you just don't have a question, I would like to go to the third part of it.
I think we should move on. I have like a couple of more things I would think could be interesting to touch on, but I don't know, maybe it's like maybe we can also finish on that. But I remember the first night when we met, you were talking about how to make everything a game, and we had a quite intense discussion, or whether that's for who that might work, or if that works for anybody. And I feel like, maybe I don't. Do you want to say something right now on this?
So I guess the idea is that there's like finite and infinite games. A finite game has a beginning and an end. An infinite game is like something that keeps going. And an example would be like being a chess player is a finite game. Playing a game of chess is a finite game. Yeah. Being a chess player is an infinite game. So being a traceur is an infinite game. It's going to keep going. We're going to keep making new rules and changing things and adjusting culture and trying to, fit ourselves into it and figure out what it means to be a traceur and what parkour is, and it's all going to keep building. So we're going to keep changing a little bit to stay in the game, whatever that means. And I think with Start Together, Finish Together, we're really going to be in this game. Like, even if we quit training for 10 years, I can be like, Philip, what the hell? Like, let's go stack some tires. Come on, man. Yeah. And then something's going to go in your head and you're going to be like, oh, fuck, gotta go stack some tires. Because it's just, I think this is part of the game. But then the finite games are like a training session, or maybe it is a game that we set up, something that helps us improve this larger game. Yeah.
From what I understood, that has pretty concrete applications in your everyday life. Like, how, for example, do you feel about doing emails?
Yeah, so like one of my first email games was just
really?
Inbox Zero, and just like, oh, can I keep Inbox Zero? And
do you understand Inbox Zero?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
So you want Inbox Zero, and then you think, okay, that's the goal. What's the challenge? The challenge is I hate emails. Okay, how can I stop from hating emails? So I start like paying attention to at what times of the day I have the most energy for emails. And I'm like, okay, from like 6:30 to 8:30 in the morning is really good for emails because I'm not getting any emails in. Then I have like a good sprint from like 11:30 to 1:30. Now it's like 4 hours a day. So a lot of time still, but I'm not sitting on the computer like, fuck, I hate this email, I don't want to write this, I don't want to write this. Like, any time like that I could take out, and that started going away, and then I had to start thinking, how can I answer emails quicker, and what can I do, and what systems can I create, and that all happened, and the game was kind of played, and I kind of figured out, like, I was afraid of emails. I had a lot of, like, kind of performance anxiety. I'm afraid of saying the wrong thing, and making it a game, making it light, making it something that I'm testing and playing and trying to figure out. I became like a playful scientist around answering emails, so the system of answering emails, and also actually physically answering emails, and it became a lot more manageable.
I wanted to ask this because I feel like it's an exciting example, because in parkour we often talk about how the experiences we make, the skills we develop transfer to our everyday life. And often it's very abstract about like, you learn to overcome obstacles, and it's not only a wall, it's like also a different obstacle, and then it's like, maybe it starts with, you can catch the bus if you're late, and then I can keep going on with my homework because I'm used to doing it from conditioning. And in my own experience, I have a very hard time to relate to this, and to how the transfer works, and I feel like yours is a very practical example where you took like a very specific system you developed for your own practice and applied it to one very concrete problem you were encountering in your everyday work life. And I still am very skeptical on whether it works for me to apply this, but I feel it's really exciting example of this thing that we always claim actually being in use by you. So I feel like it's something pretty exciting to take away.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I see every capacity of life the same way as a jump. You're like staring at the jump, you're like, okay, like I want to improve my diet. What do I have to do to improve my diet? Like, I want to get this diet. Like, what am I afraid of? What am I working towards? What could I try? And I spend a lot of time on the like, what could I try? And it's just the same, like, hey, what about this? Like, I found that I wasn't eating regularly, so it's like, what things can I do? I can, like, maybe I can try a reminder on my phone. Is that gonna work? It's like, works for a little bit, goes away, and then it's like, okay, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And I found out, like, oh, like, I buy a lot less junk food out if I have snacks in my bag all the time. So I just made it a rule, snacks in my bag all the time. There's snacks in my bag right now, and it's no problem.
So, yeah. So you find solutions for your...
Eventually you find the solution, and that's just the technique that works for you, that, and it's not that it would work for anybody else, but it's finding that technique.
My final question, or to round this up, what do you study? And do you have some book recommendations or some person to dive into, to Google?
I study a lot of different things. I'm trying to think of like what the best book recommendations would be.
I first thought that you actually do a degree in play, or no?
You talk about the play universities thing or something like that. You mentioned you...
No, I worked with an organization called Institute of Play.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then I misunderstood. I thought it's like a bachelor degree or whatever.
No.
I thought like it's awesome, and I was writing up like, okay, I want to find this in Germany, like to play, you know, like an institute for play, because I think you mentioned they bring stuff to schools.
Yes, they were partnered with a school.
And I think it's pretty awesome, like the email question or the homework question, you know, like to make everything more playful. It's easy. Yeah. So I thought there is an university like doing this. Okay.
I mean, there's definitely universities where you can study that. Yeah. But no, I don't have a degree in anything.
Okay. Yeah. So if you have any book recommendations, maybe it will sink in, and you can tell me later. It's totally okay.
For movement coaching, Katie Bowman's Movement Matters, and also Spark.
I saw it somewhere. Are you reading it?
Blake's reading it now.
Blake, yeah.
Yeah. And for personal development, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
Interesting. Thanks. The last topic would be like, how do you relate to obstacles made for parkour?
I think that there's something beautifully subversive about parkour, where you're taking an environment, you're seeing what else is possible with it. So when something's designed for parkour, it becomes a little bit less interesting for me. That can also be a challenge to see if I can find a way to use it that isn't expressed in its design.
That's really what I also love about parkour parks, like finding the glitch somehow, you know, like, you know, finding what's not what there is always an intention behind stuff from an architect, and to break this intention and to make it crazy. I can relate.
Yeah. I worry about design for parkour. Because it can be kind of like putting an animal in a cage. And I think there's a really beautiful thing about parkour, which is like reclaiming the city, saying that like this is designed for one purpose, but I can use it for another purpose. I can create something beautiful here. I can challenge myself. I can find new ways to use this, and I don't want that moment to go away.
Yeah, I totally can relate. What do you think about the obstacles here in Denmark?
I haven't gotten a chance to move around Copenhagen.
Okay.
I think there's a distinct difference though, because it does seem like the the overall environment, the physical environment, the social environment, really conducive towards like play and exploration and movement in general. Of course, that's all, you know, in this like very narrow scope of Gallo, but in the international gathering. But from what I understand, it's similar in Copenhagen, and I think that's wonderful.
Samson, you just told me that most of the classes in New York you teach outside.
Yeah.
And like you said, like it's pretty uncommon in the US. Why is it like this?
There's pretty strict just rules around insurance, so it's a lot more expensive to be able to coach outdoors than to insure a static space, and or it can be, and it's a lot less controlled. There's a lot of things that we have to consider that you don't have to consider if you're in a gym. We have to consider what the neighborhood's like, what the spot is like, whether the environment can withstand the movement that we're going to do on it, all sorts of things. And that can all become, you know, a lot simpler and easier if you just go inside and you find a way. Of course, that has its whole other challenges. Yeah. But I've found that for me, like kind of sticking to my guns and facing the challenges that are in the path I want to go is always easier than facing the challenges in the path I don't want to go.
And the path you want to go is?
I would love to see people able to train in any park in New York City. I think that would be a great first step. I think another great step would be just really equal access to physical education in America,
yes,
in the world, and I think one of the ways that we're creating unequal access is by creating these like highly competitive modalities where people become disembodied and stop moving in their late teenage years, early 20s. I think parkour is a fantastic solution because that's right when I know I started. I know right when a lot of people are looking for independence in their movement, and I think parkour is a great answer for that.
When you say that the place you want to go is to have like public parks and spaces in New York available for training, is that just because it's the easy path for you, or is there another reason why it's important to you to be outside in the city?
I like developing a tactile understanding of the city. I want people to be able to see, feel, experience the physical beauty of the city, to explore what's possible out and around, to go places that they may never have gone to, and gain a deeper respect for it. I want that, I mean, it strikes personally, like when I was a kid, I really wouldn't have been able to, like a teenager, I really wouldn't have been able to afford like going to some kind of class, learning some kind of thing, paying to learn parkour, or going to a gym or anything like that. So knowing that I guess the path I'm on is making sure that I'm not alienating my past self or anybody who's in a situation that I used to be in, or situations that are far worse than what I used to be in. And I think parkour is a little disruptive in that way too, because it says that like you can go out and get your physical training in and explore and play, and you don't need to pay anybody for it, you don't need to do anything for it. And it was also, a kind of a giant game to see whether I could create a company that I agreed with, given the fact that I don't want people to think that they have to pay to play.
I think we're done, huh? Feeling.
Yeah. I like to see it and hear it again.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things inside. I think.
You have one more silly question.
No, not really. Do you have a silly question? I always add up questions. What silly questions about parkour?
What's the first video you saw?
On avance toujours.
Avance toujours.
Hook me. Really.
I saw Motion 1.0.
I don't even
I
know
don't
that.
know.
Urban Free Flow's first video.
Ah, okay.
We're building a Parkour video archive.
Yeah.
We gathered like 90 gigabyte of
Wow.
really all the old videos. If you have any views
That's
from
awesome.
back in the days, please send them.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, we're like, especially the old open free flow things, like we're there in Dubai and do shitty stuff and put their heads in the food and throwing chairs, whatever. I think I don't have them anymore, and I would like to see them again.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, cool, Jesse. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. I put a lot of effort and passion into this project and enjoyed myself talking to so many people like Jesse. If you like the podcast, please share it with your friends and interested people. Goodbye.